Welcome to another journey into the extraordinary, where ordinary adventures take an unexpected turn. Imagine venturing deep into an uncharted jungle, seeking solace and discovery, only to stumble upon a forgotten relic, a massive yacht swallowed by time and nature. What secrets lie within its rusted walls? What stories are etched into its corroded steel? Stay with us as we unravel a tale of mystery, dread, and the chilling consequences of curiosity. A backpacker finds a long-lost ship in a dense jungle. He regrets going inside after seeing this. Tom's journey into the jungle was intended to be an escape from the ordinary, but finding an abandoned yacht buried in dense foliage turned his adventure into a nightmare. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories. The yacht, a ghost of its former self, was almost entirely engulfed by the wild. Its hull, no longer the pristine white it once was, had become a tapestry of rust and vines. The jungle had claimed it, concealing its mysterious past. As Tom approached the yacht, his curiosity outweighed his unease. The massive, decaying vessel seemed to call to him, beckoning him closer with its silent history. Its corroded surface was cold and damp to the touch, as if time had slowed within its steel walls. Vines clung to the ship, their tendrils intertwined with the rusting metal as though holding the yacht in a death grip. Despite its state of disrepair, Tom felt an overwhelming urge to explore it further. Stepping inside, Tom was met by a sudden chill. The hot, humid air of the jungle disappeared, replaced by a damp coldness that wrapped around him like a shroud. The stale odor of decay hit his senses, mingling with the thick dust that hung in the air. Shadows danced in the faint light that filtered through cracks in the hull, and the yacht's eerie silence pressed heavily on him. He felt as though he had crossed into another world, one ruled by secrets long buried. The deeper Tom ventured, the more unsettling the yacht became. Strange, unfamiliar symbols covered the walls, carved with such precision that they seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. The symbols were intricate, too foreign to be any language he knew, and they radiated a sinister energy that prickled at his skin. As he traced one of the carvings with his finger, a cold dread settled in his chest. These symbols weren't just graffiti, they were warnings, markers of something ominous. His steps echoed down narrow corridors, each creak of the floorboards amplifying the eerie quiet. The sensation that he wasn't alone grew stronger with every step, but Tom pressed on, determined to uncover the yacht's story. In one of the cabins, he found a weathered diary lying atop a dusty table. Its brittle pages detailed strange sightings and the crew's increasing unease. There were entries describing shadows that moved without explanation and voices that whispered from the darkness. Flipping through the diary, Tom discovered that the crew had been haunted by inexplicable phenomena. Doors slamming shut on their own, objects moving without reason, and ghostly figures appearing at the edges of their vision. The captain's log reflected his growing desperation. What started as a routine journey had spiraled into chaos, and the crew had descended into madness, convinced that they were cursed. The final entries hinted at a dark ritual performed in secret, a desperate attempt to ward off the evil that had plagued the ship. The deeper Tom read, the more the supernatural activity around him escalated. Ghostly whispers swirled in the air, growing louder and more insistent. Shadows seemed to shift and twist as if alive. Tom's breath quickened as he felt the yacht itself closing in on him, its walls groaning like an old dying beast. The temperature continued to drop, and the cold became so intense that Tom could see his breath fogging in the air. Suddenly, objects began to move on their own. A chair slid across the floor with a screech, and an old lantern swung violently from a hook as though invisible hands were at work. The yacht, once lifeless, now pulsed with a malevolent energy. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Tom saw them, apparitions flickering in and out of existence like broken projections. The spectral figures appeared briefly, their faces twisted in fear and pain before vanishing into the darkness. One figure, a stern-looking captain, seemed to lock eyes with Tom for a fleeting moment before dissolving into nothing. Despite the growing terror, Tom pressed forward. He needed answers. The diary and the captain's log had hinted at something deeper. An accident, a ritual, something that had doomed the crew. He found more personal items scattered throughout the yacht. Boots, an old wallet with faded family photos, a captain's hat hanging on a hook. Each relic told a story of those who had once lived on the yacht, their ordinary lives tragically interrupted. As Tom touched these items, ghostly reenactments began to play out before him, silent, desperate scenes of the crew trying to escape their fate. Tom's investigation led him to the captain's quarters, where he found a hidden journal detailing the crew's final days. The entries described a terrifying descent into madness as the crew experienced unexplainable events, storms that appeared without warning, ghostly apparitions stalking the ship, and the overwhelming sense that they were not alone. In desperation, the crew had attempted a ritual to protect themselves, but the ritual had gone horribly wrong, trapping their souls on the yacht for eternity. With each discovery, the yacht seemed to grow angrier. Paranormal activity surged, objects flew across rooms, and doors slammed shut behind Tom. Ghostly figures began to appear more frequently, their tormented faces flickering in and out of the shadows. The whispers grew louder, now intelligible, as if the spirits were trying to communicate something to Tom. "Don't go further," one voice seemed to say, while another urged him forward. "You must know." Tom stumbled upon a final clue, a hand-drawn map pointing to a location deep within the jungle. This was the source of the yacht's doom, the place where the ritual had gone wrong. The spirits grew more desperate as he neared this revelation, manifesting fully around him. The yacht became a haunted theater, its halls filled with ghostly figures replaying their final moments, each face etched with despair and horror. In a final chilling revelation, Tom learned that the crew had unintentionally sealed their fate with the failed ritual. They had tried to protect themselves from a supernatural force, but instead had bound their souls to the yacht forever. As Tom realized this, the spirits grew more aggressive, objects flying faster, and the temperature dropping even further. The yacht itself seemed to pulse with life, its rusted frame groaning and creaking as if it was about to collapse. With his heart racing, Tom made a desperate attempt to flee. But as he tried to run, he found himself paralyzed, his feet rooted to the spot. The spirits closed in around him, their hollow eyes filled with silent pleas for release. The yacht's oppressive presence pressed down on him, its secrets now his burden to bear. He was trapped, bound to the yacht just as the crew had been, his fate sealed within its rusted walls. Tom's muscles strained in a futile effort as he tried to move, but his limbs wouldn't respond. It was as though invisible, icy hands gripped him, pinning him in place. His heart pounded and adrenaline surged, but no amount of willpower could break the unseen chains that bound him. The cold air was thick with dread, making every breath laborious. Around him, the spirits that had been faint shadows now fully manifested. Their ghostly forms hovered, faces twisted with agony, their hollow eyes fixated on Tom as if begging for release. Their translucent hands reached out, brushing against him without touch, sending chills through his body. Tom's throat tightened with fear as the realization dawned. He had disturbed something far worse than he could have imagined. He had stumbled into the domain of lost souls, prisoners of a past they could never escape. His mind raced, searching for a way out. He had to do something, anything. His voice trembled as he spoke into the oppressive cold. "I mean no harm," he said, his words barely a whisper at first. "I just want to understand." He hoped desperately that the spirits would listen. The room seemed to pause, the oppressive cold shifting slightly as if the spirits were listening. Emboldened, Tom's voice grew stronger. "I will make sure everyone knows what happened here. I will tell your story." He could feel the weight of their anguish pressing down on him. The tension in the air lessened slightly, and the icy grip on his limbs eased, allowing him to move. Tom cautiously retraced his steps to the control room where he had found the captain's log, now tucked securely in his backpack. The final page had described a desperate last-ditch ritual the crew had performed in an attempt to escape their fate. Their actions had sealed their doom, trapping them in the decaying vessel forever. He could almost feel their despair as he read about the mysterious chants and symbols meant to protect them, measures that had only bound them to the rusting hull. The truth weighed heavily on Tom. The crew, desperate and terrified, had been well-meaning but tragically misguided. They had inadvertently condemned themselves to a nightmarish existence. His promise to share their story was the only way he could think to bring peace to these tortured souls. But the spirits weren't done with him yet. As he made his way through the labyrinthine corridors of the yacht, the air grew colder, and the whispers of the spirits returned, wrapping around him like a shroud. The yacht itself seemed to awaken, doors slamming shut, lights flickering in chaotic rhythms. The walls seemed to close in, as if the vessel was alive, conspiring to keep him there. Every step Tom took felt heavier, every breath more labored as he pushed through debris and overturned furniture in a frantic attempt to escape. Finally, he reached the yacht's entrance, but it was blocked by an unseen force. Tom's muscles tensed, bulging as he strained against the invisible barrier that held him back. His frustration mounted. He was so close to freedom, yet trapped by the spirit's final hold. With one last desperate push, he let out a primal scream, channeling all his strength into breaking free. The barrier wavered, then shattered. He stumbled out, collapsing onto the damp jungle floor. For a moment, Tom lay still, gasping for air, feeling the warm, humid air on his skin, a sharp contrast to the bone-chilling cold inside the yacht. His body trembled, not just from the exertion, but from the sheer terror of his ordeal. The spirits had let him go, but their presence still lingered in his mind. His muscles ached and his heart pounded in his chest as he scrambled to his feet, determined to put as much distance between himself and the cursed yacht as possible. He ran through the jungle, branches scratching at his skin, the sounds of the jungle gradually replacing the haunting whispers that had filled his ears moments earlier. It wasn't until his legs gave out that he finally stopped, bending over to catch his breath. Only then did he dare to look back. The yacht loomed in the distance, barely visible through the thick foliage. It was a rusted, vine-covered silhouette, pulsing with a sinister energy that Tom could still feel even from afar. A wave of sorrow and regret washed over him as he realized the spirits were still trapped, bound to the decaying vessel by the ritual they had performed. Tom's escape felt hollow. He had survived, but the crew remained imprisoned. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly avoided sharing their fate. Sitting on a fallen tree, he pulled the captain's log from his backpack, thumbing through its worn pages once more. Every entry painted a vivid picture of the crew's descent into madness and desperation. What had once seemed like cryptic symbols and nonsensical scribbles now made sense. The ritual they had attempted to perform had backfired, trapping them forever. Tom pulled out a notebook and began meticulously documenting everything he had uncovered. He took note of the ritual steps, the crew's fear-laden final days, and his own terrifying encounter with the spirits. Each word felt like a step toward bringing peace to the lost souls aboard the haunted yacht. As he wrote, the haunting visions replayed in his mind, the cold, the ghostly figures, the whispered pleas. He needed to share their story, not just to honor them, but to warn others. Tom knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed expert help, someone with knowledge of the supernatural. He made a list of paranormal investigators, determined to find someone who could uncover more about the ritual and possibly release the trapped spirits. His report, filled with notes and evidence, would serve as a starting point. The spirits' suffering haunted him, and he refused to let their story fade into obscurity. Before leaving the jungle, Tom took one last look at the cursed yacht. overgrown and decaying, but still pulsing with the energy of the souls bound within. Fear and pity welled in his chest as he turned his back on the haunted vessel. Back in civilization, Tom poured all his energy into writing a detailed account of his experience, his muscular frame hunched over the desk, typing late into the night. He documented every haunting, every symbol, and every eerie encounter aboard the yacht. Each word brought him closer to fulfilling his promise to the lost crew. As he finished his report, Tom sat back and reflected. His final hope was that by telling their story, they might finally find peace. Though the fear of what he had encountered still lingered, Tom felt a deep sense of responsibility to ensure their tragic tale wasn't forgotten. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another unbelievable tale like this one.